Are Harley Davidson about to become a parts-only company? Watch this video. Hello, welcome to RevelatorAlf. I hope you're all well. So, are Harley Davidson about to become a company that ditches motorcycle sales in favor of just becoming a parts company and the rest of whatever they do, merchandising? Now, this has been a long-standing joke for non-Harley Davidson fans, let's say, is that they don't sell motorcycles, they only sell t-shirts, or they only sell bits and bobs, whatever it is. But the reality of their business is that not the bulk of their business comes from merchandising and financial services and parts, but it is a substantial amount. The problem is that we know that with Harley Davidson specifically, because of their price point on their motorcycles and the types of motorcycles that they sell, they are having reducing sales. Now, I'm really thankful to those guys out there who are sending me emails and let me know what's going on in your area in terms of motorcycle dealerships, Harley Davidson dealerships in this case. Now, in the UK, for example, just in the last few days, we've had another 2 major dealerships just close their doors. In fact, they've closed their doors overnight, and that's led to lots of issues as well locally. Now, I talked about this recently when my local dealership closed as well. In the last 2 years, I believe there's been in the region of about nearly 10, it could be 10 or more dealerships that have closed. Currently, today in the UK, there are 19 dealerships, whereas a couple of years ago, there were possibly 30, 32, something like that. So there's been a substantial drop-off. We're talking, what, 33, 34% of closures of dealerships in the UK alone. Now, of course, this is replicated in other parts of the world as well. But if you just look at the numbers of motorcycles that are being sold, and also the numbers of motorcycles that remain on dealership floors that they just cannot shift, and also the numbers of motorcycles that are in the used bike market for Harley Davidson's this is, then they have a problem. The problem that I've been talking about for a long, long time is that their motorcycles are just too expensive for the kinds of people who want to buy them and the amount of money that they have available in this current economic climate. So I take it on the chin when I get criticized, personally criticized by people out there saying that I've been negative about Harley Davidson. But I've tried to just show you facts and just show you the reality of the situation from a business point of view. And I've always talked about price, and I've always talked about demand, and I've always talked about the kinds of motorcycles that they produce. It's not that I hate the brand, and it's not that I hate the motorcycles. Far from it. It's the opposite way around. I love the brand, and I love the motorcycles that they produce. But it's just that I've seen that I've only catered to a certain demographic of people, and that type of person, that demographic, is not buying motorcycles anymore. They've just been priced out of the market. And those that were priced in the market, they've probably gone on to pastures new, gone on to different things. Or the ones that could afford it, no longer able to afford it. So this leaves Harley Davidson and brands like it in a sticky situation, in that they have product to sell that many people favor, many people may aspire to buying, but they just can't afford to buy it. Therefore, they're not shifting product. They're not making motorcycle sales. So whilst they still might be selling parts, whilst they may be selling merchandise, which are reducing in numbers as well, and whilst they might be selling their brand, which is a reducing commodity as well, and whilst they might be selling financial services, again, which is reducing, if you look over the last few years in terms of their accounts that they publish, it's a big downward spiral. But the number one thing that you could always say about Harley Davidson, regardless of all the detractors, regardless of all those naysayers and those who wish to criticize Harley Davidson as a motor company, they did produce, or they do produce motorcycles. But unfortunately, they're producing motorcycles they can't sell. So what does this mean? Does this mean that Harley Davidson just become a parts company? That they're just a merchandising company, a financial company? Or they just sell a few motorcycles and that's about it? It could well be. This could be a real situation here. Now, I've talked over many videos about different strategies that Harley Davidson could employ. I've talked about the kinds of motorcycles that they could sell in addition to the bikes that they already sell, and at a price point that would make them a much more viable business. But whether they ever do something like that, whether it be welcomed by the Harley Davidson fan base, is another story. Now, I also want to make this perfectly clear for those of you out there who will say, I would never buy those kinds of motorcycles, the small motorcycles. Yes, those motorcycles are not for you. Those motorcycles are to attract new customers and to attract customers to the brand who can't afford the big expensive bikes. If you want those big expensive Tourers and you can afford it, then go for it. That's what you want. I've never said that Harley Davidson have got to stop selling those bikes, which are really great if you can afford them, but they need to sell other types of bikes. They need to sell other types of products. Other manufacturers have responded to this. Harley Davidson have not, and they haven't responded in the price point that is going to keep the company afloat. So if they're not selling motorcycles, therefore dealerships cannot keep in business. They cannot keep on selling a product that nobody wants to buy. So what we found in 2024 especially is that Harley Davidson dealerships in particular, but there have been other dealerships as well of other manufacturers, they found it increasingly difficult to sell expensive motorcycles. And it's got to a point that there hasn't been a gradual decline in that dealership. They've got to a point that overnight, they're making a shock announcement and saying, we cannot continue this business anymore. We have to close our doors. So why is this? Why has there been a false economy in many ways around big motorcycle sales? Because everybody wants to believe that it isn't true. Everybody wants to believe that they can keep on going in business. But the first indication is that those who are trying to sell the motorcycles, if they can't sell them, and if they've got a huge inventory of expensive motorcycles that they really can't sell for any cheaper because they'd be losing a lot of money, and they just can't sell them. They're just there on the shop floor, and they just can't get rid of them in any way. They can't sell them to any other dealership because they're not buying them, certainly not the price that they want to sell them at. Customers aren't coming through the door, and they haven't come through the door during the main riding season to buy in numbers. Therefore, you've got a big problem. So where has that motorcycling buying public gone? Have they just stopped riding motorcycles? Is that it? Is that what we're talking about? Well, possibly in some cases, but most of it will be one of two things. They've either gone to another motorcycle brand, or they're just not buying brand new motorcycles and they're sticking with what they've got. This is what I talked about 2 or 3 years ago, and I was saying, watch out, Harley Davidson, because the people who would normally buy your products are not going to buy your brand new products. They're just going to stick with what they've got. That doesn't mean they're anti-Harley Davidson. That doesn't mean that they're anti-American motorcycle company or motorcycle brands. It's just that they're not buying your brand new one. So what they do, they're going to stick with what they've got. And if they need their parts from Harley Davidson, they'll get them. If they need parts from elsewhere, they'll go somewhere else. So they're not exactly leaving the brand, just that they're not buying the new brand product. So this means the likes of dealerships have nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go for them. So how can this change for Harley Davidson? How can it change? How can it be that a big motorcycle company are seemingly so slow to react to this? It's almost like they are the Titanic and they can't go anywhere. They are going to hit that iceberg. Okay, so there's various things that they can do. But again, this won't be a quick fix. They should have had this plan in action over the last year and a half. And in 2025, they would bring out these new bikes, the bikes that I've been talking about, that's going to attract a whole load of new customers. But unfortunately, if they haven't already had this plan in action, they can't just suddenly spring into action. It just won't work. They'll need a lot more time to develop these motorcycles and bring them to the market at a price point that is going to be attractive to most people. So could they sell their motorcycles in another way? Well, yes, they could. They could actually go direct to the manufacturer. They could sell their motorcycles online, for example, in an online marketplace. Now, you could do that for used motorcycles, of course, but I'm talking about ordering brand new motorcycles. Well, if you did that, then you can actively reduce the price point because you're not having to filter out and deliver to dealerships and so on and so forth. You could just set up, let's say, service centers and parts centers where the motorcycle can be serviced and parts can be gained for it. But it doesn't have to be a dealership. So other companies have been doing this. I believe Ford have been doing this. Other automobile manufacturers have been doing this as well. Tesla, their whole business model is kind of based on that. There isn't a dealership per se. You kind of buy it online. There are places where you can go and view Teslas, but most of it is all an online business. So could they do that? Could they reduce their price point and introduce new models at a cheaper rate? Basically, because they don't have to deal with the global Harley Davidson brand identity, which is more often than not the Harley Davidson dealership. In many ways, these recent dealership closures here in the UK have sent a bit of a shockwave, an even greater shockwave. And it seems as if every month there's another dealership closing, one after the other. As I said, a few years ago, there was well over 30 dealerships in the UK. So now I believe there's 19, and I think that's at a stretch right now as well. Now, of course, Harley Davidson not alone, because there have been other dealerships in the UK that suddenly closed overnight. So this is another video which I've made talking about big motorcycle sales. Actually, they're not selling. It's the smaller motorcycles that are always the big sellers. The big motorcycles, they don't sell, especially in the winter months. So companies that just focus on those big models, they're always going to struggle. So where does a company like Harley Davidson go? Are they to become just purely a parts manufacturer, a parts supplier? Are they just a merchandising? Are they just a finance company? Are they just a brand identity without any product, without any motorcycles? Now, of course, I'm looking down the line here. I'm not talking about right now. I'm looking down the line. If you've got a building groundswell of dealerships that are closing, that means that the product isn't selling. That means that there's been a steady decline over a number of years, not just in the last few months, it's been over a number of years. And if they don't turn this around, then they've got a bit of a problem. If they believe that they can still sell really expensive motorcycles, premium priced motorcycles, because they believe their product is a premium product, then what's going to happen is they may still sell them, but in drastically reduced numbers. And there will be those premium bikes at a premium brand for a premium price, but they won't be selling in numbers. If they're not selling in numbers, the overall business, the overall numbers will dramatically reduce. And not just in the United States, not just around Europe, but at a global level. Will Harley Davidson just become a parts company? Well, the way they're going, it's not looking great. Thanks again for all of you who keep on sending me the emails and all the local information as well. Really appreciate it. And especially thanks to all of you who send me emails requesting that I make videos on certain subjects as well, and or investigate certain areas as well. Not only about Harley Davidson's, about other motorcycle manufacturers as well. Really appreciate that. And certainly I'll keep on trying to bring these videos to you. What do you think about Harley Davidson? What is the future? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like what I do, just keep on watching the videos, and I'll catch you again. Bye now.